you become Minister of Public Enterprise, I think it was 2018, I mean, your job has fundamentally been about reviewing all these SOEs, as we've spoken about now. And I mean, during your time as Finance Minister, I'm sure they did weigh on our prospects. Why do you think that our SOEs have become this cumbersome weight on South Africa and our prospects? And just why was it so easy for corruption to set in and take root over the years that you've looked at all these state-owned enterprises?
But you can ask the same question, Ron, about Steinhoff, or Wirecard in Germany, or Tongaat in another part of South Africa, which I come from. How did it happen? You had boards, you had internal audits, you had external auditors, you had a management team that's supposed to deliver on certain performance indicators. So what we're learning from this 3-year experience is having the formalities of governance is one thing, but being able to really get into the operational, financial, and the human elements that go with that is quite a different proposition. And we also thought in 2018, because that was the common public narrative, change the board, remove Ron, put Burton in there. Ron is an honest guy, Burton is an honest guy, Ron is a thief. And lo and behold, you will have a different proposition. Even today, that's part of the narrative. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change the way in which human conduct, I'll just put it in very polite terms, operates and performs at a power station level. It doesn't necessarily detect the malfeasance. It doesn't cater for adequately understanding what exact capabilities do you have in terms of operational engineers, or the quality of maintenance that is done, or the quality of coal that is delivered at some of these power stations, which I thought 2 years ago we had begun to solve. But if you talk to the Eskom management today, that still remains an issue. Today, 3 years later, so what is going on in the coal industry? Some, I'm sure, are behaving very well, but others appear not to follow the rule book in some ways. So the simple point I'm making is that public narrative, because of its search for simplicity, doesn't quite command the complexity of, firstly, doing away with the old. Secondly, replacing the key personnel. Thirdly, understanding, diagnostically speaking, where exactly do you have the main problems within an institution as complex as some of the ones that we are talking about. You can apply that to PRASA and many others as well. And then fourthly, so you've got to take care of the old, you've got to stabilize in terms of the present, and at the same time, you've got to redesign the business model so that the market in which an entity plays and operates is one that you are responsive to in terms of the dynamics. So again, if you just look at the last 3 years or 4 years, the energy market has changed formidably in terms of the role of utilities, the role of renewables, the pressure that is being brought about on fossil fuels, and whether financial institutions will support mining, coal mining, for example, or not, the obligations that we have globally in relation to climate change. All of that complexity has now got to bring to bear on the kind of business model that you actually emerge with. So in the case of Eskom, you have an additional factor, which is how do you convert from where you are to where you want to be? Because we're talking about human beings here. You're talking about staff that are in the power station. You're talking about people who do business with that power station legitimately. You're talking about communities in which those power stations are actually based. And you're asking all of them to undergo this just transition in energy terms. But they must actually go through a human transition. And ESCOM has spent a fair amount of the last year designing this just transition, not just theorizing about it. And hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll begin to see the first implementation of that. And that will teach us a lot of lessons about how the next 10 to 15 years is going to go in relation to what we're currently calling the just transition.